In today's video, we're going to learn about the incredible history of the zero-turn mower. Stay tuned.
So I think when most people think of a zero-turn mower, they think of the latest, greatest grass cutting abilities and machines, but they don't realize that zero-turn technology has actually been around for about 75 years. So in order to talk about zero-turn history, we have to go back, way back to rural 1940s Warrensburg, Missouri, when a young Max B. Swisher was working on projects out of his family chicken coop. It would actually be about the year 1949 that he would come out with the first ever zero-turn mower. It utilized belts to drive the wheels, and it had a three-wheel design. You would actually need to put it in reverse in order to use the zero-turn function.
Really? Quite interesting.
So these tractors of Max Swisher's, which by the way, Swisher is still a company, still a business, and it's still in Warrensburg, Missouri to this day. But these early Swisher models, which were made actually for about 30 years, from the early 1950s all the way up until about the early 1980s, would have been called the Ride King and the Big Mo. So tell us what happened next, Brett.
Well, moving ahead a little bit in time to the late 1950s, John Regier out of Mount Ridge, Kansas, was working for the Heston Corporation, which was a large manufacturer of hay and forage equipment. After several years of working on a design, in 1963, Regier introduced his two-lever steering zero-turn design. He nicknamed his creation Workhorse.
So John Regier ended up resigning from the Heston Corporation in 1964 and set out to patent his steering system, and he built 24 red and white models that had 36-inch mowing decks, now named Hustler. These initial machines featured a separate drive system for each wheel and were really aimed at the residential market. So after a short while, Excel, a tractor cab company, took notice of this Hustler machine and got involved. They decided to up the game, and in 1965, they started using their financial resources and offered a 12 horsepower machine with a 65-inch deck that was really aimed at the industrial market.
This machine's maneuverability was a big hit with consumers, but the belt-driven drive system was not. Reports of slippage on slopes was a major complaint. Therefore, they farmed out the design of a hydrostatic drive system to a company in nearby Wichita, Kansas. The design came back overly complicated and unusable.
So that's when Excel plant maintenance head Ray Rilling came to the rescue. He spent the next year on nights and weekends in a small garage coming up with his very own hydrostatic drive system, which he then presented to his boss, Roy Mullet.
Well, that's a badass name. Ray Mullet.
So these three men, Regier, Rilling, and Mullet, were really the founding fathers of the zero-turn mower in a lot of ways, and the founders of the Hustler brand of zero-turn mowers, which is still in business to this day. So the new design with the hydrostatic transmission came out around 1970, and I believe the last belt-driven model would have been the 272, which would have been right around 1969 to 1970. And from there on out, they started using hydrostatic transmissions to drive these zero-turn mowers. And the rest, they say, is history. So moving ahead to present day, there's at least 30 or 40 companies, I'd say, that make zero-turn mowers, ranging from small residential units all the way up to massive commercial and industrial machines with humongous cutting decks. And they're probably the most popular way to mow grass, I would say, here in 2024.
Well, yeah, like I was at a local saw shop to us up in Connecticut, Yankee Sales, and I went inside for some string for our weed whacker, and Steel, like the chainsaw company, Steel, makes a zero-turn now, which I was totally unaware of.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, it's at least 30 or 40 brands. I don't know exactly. If you know, let us know in the comments, but
Several brands for sure.
I've seen some really unique Hustler brand mowers too. I know one time it was at the Quabbin Reservoir. I don't know if anyone watching is from New England, but if you're not familiar, Quabbin's perhaps the biggest body of water in New England. It's definitely the biggest in Massachusetts. I don't know, it's probably not the biggest in the whole New England area, but it's definitely the biggest in Mass. And they have this massive dam with a real steep slope. and they had, I believe it was like a Hustler side swipe or side step, and the machine cab actually leveled itself out while the mower was mowing this real steep hill. It was really cool to watch. I would have been crapping my pants mowing this hill. I mean, this dam just goes down for, you've walked it. I mean, it just goes down forever. If you tip this machine, you tumble about 100 times before you get to the bottom.
For a frame of reference, they actually flooded a bunch of towns just to make this reservoir. So I'm sure you can imagine just how big this dam would have to be to hold in all of that water.
Yeah, this Quabbin Reservoir that we're talking about actually has underground aqueducts, which are humongous diameter pipes that feed the city of Boston for their water supply. These aqueducts are so big that men and women can actually take canoes down them to check the cracks and make sure that the pipes are staying in good order.
I would not want that job. No, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be pretty claustrophobic going in this pipe for miles and miles under the ground.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
I actually used to know a guy that the aqueduct ran under his parents' property. They had like, a vertical shaft. I think they closed it off after 9/11 when they had terrorist attacks, but they had a vertical shaft that went all the way down to the aqueduct on their property.
It's actually really cool.
But going back to the zero turns, we do hope you guys enjoyed this history lesson about zero turns. I know I was a little surprised learning just how old the zero turn design is. I would have thought it was much more recent, maybe the 1970s or something. I was kind of surprised when I learned that it went all the way back to 1949, which is 75 years ago.
Yeah.
So let us know in the comments, do you prefer a zero turn? Do you prefer a garden tractor? Do you like both? What's your favorite brand of zero turn and why? Until the next time, have a good one, friends.
Well, we certainly hope you guys enjoyed today's video on the history of the zero-turn mower and that you found it interesting, maybe informative. If you did, please let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in seeing other zero-turn content, we do have a whole bunch on the channel. We actually have a tour and discussion with a local to us dealer where we discuss the Aaron's and Gravely line. And this same dealer also happens to sell Wright mowers, which are pretty interesting. They're an American-made product. They have a stand-on mower and a zero-turn mower, which we also discuss with him. If you're interested in seeing any of those kind of videos, please check the description of this video where we're going to link those videos. In addition to that, we have videos showcasing our Aaron's Icon XD52 and videos where we use it for not only mowing, but also leaf cleanup and all kinds of chores around that property. If you like garden tractors and you're not a zero-turn person, then please consider checking out our garden tractor playlist where we discuss a lot of the vintage garden tractors of the past and showcase them on the channel. So until next time, have a good one, friends.